Dr. Boyce D. Watkins is one of the leading financial scholars and social commentators in America who advocates for education and economic empowerment. He is the definition of what it means to be a Black scholar and leader in America. He is one of the founding fathers in the field of financial activism, where Black wealth is one of the key determinants in the fight for social justice. Dr. Watkins holds a PhD in finance, and after 13 years on the faculty at Syracuse University, has founded the Black Business School, which specializes in Black wealth training at a fraction of the cost of a college education and serves over 150,000 students worldwide. Dr. Watkins is currently the host of the Building Black Dollars podcast on the Push Black Network with 4 million subscribers, and is the author of his new book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. He is happily married to Dr. Alicia Watkins and resides with their family in Illinois. Please welcome Dr. Boyce D. Watkins.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate that. I am honored to get a chance to speak to all of you. And I'm gonna tell you what, I just think that this is an awesome gathering, you know, and when I came in here, you know, I'll be happy to tell my mother about the fact that first thing I saw when I came in this room was I saw God and that awesome power of God that really carries a lot of us through tough times, because it makes me actually think about when I was when I was born. One time I asked my mother, I said, so when I was born, you know, who was there to greet me when I came into the world, you know, because I gone to my niece's birth and all of us were there waiting outside. We were all excited. It was about 10 of us, you know, it's just like a big deal. And I said, who was at the hospital? And she said, nobody. I said, what? And I got kind of sad, you know, like, dang, man, you know, she brought me this world and there was nobody there. But she said, no, just, you know, because I knew my daddy wasn't there. You know, he was about 15 years old. He was too young to be having a kid. And I thought somebody else would be there. And she said, no, it's just me and the white lady that, the nurse that gave birth to you. And I said, well, why didn't, you know, grandma and them come to when I was delivered? She said, oh, because on Fridays they would go out to eat a kingfish.
Oh my God.
They dropped her off at the, you know, so I became sad at first. I really actually was a little sad because I said, gosh, you know, nobody cared that when I was here. Nobody cared, you know, I came to school, nobody's there. And I had a mix of emotions. I pictured me and my mother. You know, I'm a newborn, me and my mother sitting out there waiting outside for her ride to come pick her up, you know, and how scared she must have been. And I admired her courage. You know, I admired the courage that she had to deal with all that by herself, you know, and of course, you shouldn't be having children that young, but, you know, things happen. And I just said, you know, first thing I said to her was, I said, thank you for even giving me that chance to live. And then I said, what gave you, because, you know, because there's other things that people can do, right, in that situation. And then I said, so what did you do? How was that? What did that feel like? And she said, I didn't know what to do. I was scared to death. And she said, so I went to church and she said she was pregnant. Nobody knew except for her. And she was just praying and praying and praying. And she just said, I just gave you to God.
Amen.
Ooh. You know, and I have to pause when I tell that story, because even though I've told it before, every time I tell that story, my emotions just, it's like I hit a brick wall. Like, you know, and she said she went to the altar and she said, I can't take care of this baby. But I know you're gonna find a way. And so I'm going to give him to you. She literally gave me to God, you know.
Yeah.
See, and I'm getting emotional already.
Yeah.
I hope y'all can forgive me, but that story, that's what I thought about when I first came in this room. So, you know, so I think that's a good place to start, you know, in the sense that one of the greatest things that we have, I think, as Black people is just that power of faith. And I think about what faith really has done in my life in terms of giving me confidence, to walk down a dark tunnel, not knowing what's in there, not knowing when I'm gonna hit the light, and to just know it's gonna be all right. So just like when I turned on the Zoom and I hit the button and I said, I see them in there, but they can't hear me. I was like, it'll be all right. And then the bigger decisions. My mother is 16 years old, scared to death, giving birth to this baby with no money in her pocket, no nothing, no support, nothing. And God just said, it'll be all right. And it was all right, and I think really that's a good foundation to start a conversation on when you're talking about what we're discussing, which is, writing books and taking that step in your career where your energy and everything in you is telling you, okay, I got the story to tell. I gotta go out here and create this thing, and not knowing where it's gonna go. You don't know. You're not gonna see all the way at the end of the tunnel, but that faith is what can allow you, if you feel it, if you accept it, and not run away from it, it can allow you to say, you know what, it'll be all right. As long as I stick to some basic rules of hard work, being a good person, doing my best, seizing opportunities, consistently putting one foot in front of the other, it'll be all right. And so that same faith that gave my mother the courage that she had, when I was born, that's what I use every single day when I do what I do. You mentioned my latest book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I think it's the 6th book I've written. I gotta go back and count. But let me just tell you, the first book I wrote was called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About College. And it was for Black students that want to go to college. I wrote it. Everything I do is for Black people. I don't really think much about anybody else. I don't hate anybody. I just realize where, it's like if you're a doctor and you know that you're a heart doctor, you know there's something wrong with the heart. You're thinking about the heart. You're not really thinking about lungs and kidneys and all that so much. You only think about those things to the extent that they affect the heart. And that's how I am. I think about the Black community. I only think about other communities to the extent of how they impact and affect the Black community. And so that first book was written for Black students, and what I wanted was, I felt that there was a message I wanted to share on to really spread the word about college in general, and that it's not as difficult as people think. When I went off to college, I made terrible grades in school. I failed almost every single class I took. My grades were really bad, and actually it was by applying things I learned from sports. The work ethic and the discipline and strategy and planning and just consistently trying harder. I just applied that to academics. And when I did that, I was the top student in the class, So I said, this is not so bad. This is actually kind of easy if you figure the game out. And then when I became a professor, I really figured out the game because I knew I'd seen it from both sides. So I wrote that book to basically say, okay, here's the blueprint. If you go to college, ain't no reason for you to flunk out other than you not doing the work. Because here's the blueprint. Here's how your professor is thinking. Here's what's going on in your class. And I had that message to share, and I shared it. And let me just tell you, the first version of that book was not very good. When I look back at it, it wasn't my best work per se. I didn't have any of the support in terms of I didn't have a book deal, or anything like that. Not a publisher coming along and saying, "Oh, well, we'll pay you money to write this book." What am I paying me money to do? Nothing back then. And really, even to this day, I've never had a book deal. Now I just don't want one. Now I know how to sell my own book and get it to the people that need to see it. And I've actually learned that it's easier to operate without those constraints, especially when you have a message that is the type of message that we need to share with each other that really is relevant to who we are and what we're trying to do as Black people, right? And so ultimately, what I would say is that, with that first book, what happens is I put it out, I'm going through this book and I'm finding, lots of embarrassing errors and typos and grammatical errors and everything else. But there were a lot of people that were helped by that book. And that book was the beginning and the launching pad for the rest of my career. And if I had allowed any insecurities about that particular project to stop me from moving forward, then everything else after that would never have occurred. And so what I would say generally, since we're here really talking about publishing and writing books, right? That's kind of a big premise, right? Is to say that you're not going to do everything perfect. And it's really a matter of understanding what it is that you really need to say and who can benefit from what you have to say. And if you can identify that, if you know what you want to say and you know who can benefit from it, then you've done a lot of the legwork in terms of knowing how your project is going to impact the world and be successful. Now, to give you background in terms of writing, I failed English class many times, too many times to count. I told you, when I say I failed school, I did terrible in school. I did not make good grades or hardly anything. I never made an A in anything. I think I made an A in gym class or something, because I used to run fast, but I never made A's in regular classes. And so I didn't know, I wasn't comfortable with grammar and how to break down a sentence and pronouns and verbs and adverbs and dangling participles. I don't know that stuff. Still don't. But here's what happened. What actually got me into writing, and I did not know I could actually write, was when I was a freshman in college, I had this theater teacher who would make us go see a play. And each week we go see a play, and she would have us describe the play in extreme detail, and just like what we saw, what we felt, what we, the sounds and the sights and everything else. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed writing in detail the things that I was seeing. So what I started doing was I started doing that in my regular life. I started journaling a lot, and all the journaling. What was going on was it was therapeutic for me, because I'm very high on the trauma scale. There's a test called the ACEs trauma test, adverse childhood experiences. And I had some tough experiences as a kid where my wife is a therapist. And so she had me take this test, and she said, woo, she said, if I'd known you were this crazy, I don't know if I'd have married you. And, and I said, yeah, I went through a lot, but I didn't think much of it because everybody was going through something. But I had a lot of healing I needed to do, right? And so what was going on was when I started journaling, it was a healing process, because I was processing my feelings on paper, and I would just write and write and write and write and write and write and write. And I wasn't worried about the grammar or anything like that. I was just communicating and just laying things out just as they were coming out, just like the theater teacher taught me. And what I found was that was a beautiful process for a couple of reasons. One, it really helped me solidify myself as a good writer, because what was going on was, in addition to all that writing, I was doing a lot of reading, because now that I had actually started doing well in school, I started to like school, because we like things that we're good at. If we, the reason I didn't like school before was because I was bad at it. I go to school and I get put in detention, and my grades would be terrible, and I'd be stressed out for every test. But when I started doing well, I was like, okay, this is my thing. I like this. It's like being good at basketball. You want to play basketball a lot because that's what you're good at. So I was reading constantly. And so I was taking in, all this grammar and all these sentences, and I just instinctively began to know what a good sentence sounded like. And then also as a writer, I was learning how to communicate the idea without necessarily being restrained by what was grammatically right or grammatically wrong. So the balance was, I ended up becoming a pretty good writer and not even knowing it. And so the first time I actually wrote for the public was, I was really mad. I'd read this newspaper article in the campus paper written by this very racist conservative guy. And I was so mad about it. And I was walking across the campus. I bumped into the president of the university, and I said, I can't believe he wrote this. Can somebody put this in the paper? Like, this is racist. And he said, well, if you disagree, you should go write a rebuttal. And I said, oh, okay. So I saw the journalism office right across the street. So I walked over there, and I walked down, and I bumped into this guy. And I said, hey, I want to know how to write a guest column. And the guy said, well, you can have my spot. I write the column, but I don't even really like writing in the paper. So you can tell the editor you can have my spot. There's his office. So I went in to this guy's office. And this guy, it was funny. Back then, I was much more of a liberal Democratic Party kind of person. I've kind of changed since then. I'm not a conservative, not a Republican. I don't get into Democrat, Republican stuff. I'm just black. But back then, I was more Democrat, more Bill Clinton-ish kind of. And this guy was staunch conservative, super right wing. But he gave me the spot in the paper. And for some reason, when I would write those articles, like the page would just turn on fire. Like every article I put out, everybody on campus would read it. I mean, and it was the first time I'd ever had that experience of really being publicly recognized for any work that I was doing. And he loved working with me, because even though we disagreed with each other and didn't like each other, he knew that I would get eyeballs in the newspaper. So I was his favorite writer, and we just had a good partnership, even though we were different politically. And you don't really see that so much now, but back then it worked. And so when that occurred, that's when I began to say, okay, I think I'm a good writer. I did not know I could actually do this. And so what I would say to anybody listening is that when you have a story you want to tell, first of all, you gotta write it down, get it on paper. And in my view, even if nobody else reads what you're writing initially, maybe write it for yourself. Like when I used to keep my journal, the best thing about keeping the journal, in addition to it being therapeutic and helping me practice my writing, was it helped me remember my life. So if you're a child and you start writing all the little things down that are going on in your life, and you get in the habit of writing every day, not only will you be a better writer, but you will also remember things that you'll forget when you get older. I started my journal when I was about 21, 22 years old. I wish I'd started when I was 10. Because there's so many things from my childhood. Because my childhood was so hard, I forgot almost everything, and I would love to know what I was doing, today, when I was 13 years old, and now I can go back 20 years, 25 years, but I can't go all the way back to when I was 12 or 13, because that would actually be helpful in terms of processing some of the challenging things that I went through as a kid. A lot of pain, a lot of hurt. But remember, everything is an asset to you. I don't look at anything I went through that was difficult as a setback. I think that anything you go through that is difficult, if you process it the right way, can be very beneficial to you in terms of making you tougher, making you smarter, making you more capable. And I believe that if you have a story that you want to share with the world, or something that you've gone through, one way you can actually get something from that and salvage from that is using that as a valuable lesson to elevate somebody else. So now today, I write all the time. I'm constantly writing stuff, not just that book, but I write a lot of short articles and stuff like that. And I find that the challenging things that I went through when I was younger are extremely beneficial in terms of me connecting with the audience. Also, the other thing that I think is really important when you're Black is you have to be able to get it done without waiting around for the system to recognize you, or for other entities to kind of pick up what you're doing and to fund it and support it and all that. You have to be willing to invest in yourself. And so to this day, when I write a book, I don't go looking for a book deal. I don't go looking for anybody to sign me to a contract or anything like that. In fact, to this day, I've never had a radio show, TV show, none of that stuff. But I've had a chance to speak all around the world and, to a lot of people, and I sold a lot of books and things like that. And a lot of that came from understanding business. And so I would say that anybody that wants to write a book or create something should make sure you understand, how's this going to go full circle? What's this process going to look like? So you start with, what do you want to share? Who can benefit from it? And then how are you going to get those ideas in front of other people? And I also think that writing, if that's what you do and that's what you love, should be something that you're doing on a regular basis every single day. So that you can practice it and not necessarily feel like there are any rules. There are no rules to this game, except to achieve whatever you define to be success. And only you really know what those rules actually are and what that's going to look like for you. So the other thing about writing a book that I would say, and by the way, I'm open to questions and things like that as well. So, if there's a point, ma'am, I see you, Miss Johnson. I see you're nodding, you and your husband. So y'all the ones that I can see, and then I see these young ladies on the screen. Are those your children? I'm sorry?
I had to unmute. Yes, so JFAM Johnson, our 8 children, they're best-selling authors. They have their own clothing brand. They're studying your course. Emmanuel is studying your course. They do trading, a little bit of trading. So yeah, JFAM Johnson, say hello. And we do have a couple of questions when you're ready. Just let us know.
Okay, yeah, we can stop at any time. But first of all, I'm very proud of you. Your family, I got to know your family, but your family is the type of family that I write about in my book, in terms of what I visualize when I see the power of our families. And what I really also want you to know about your family, in case you don't know it, is that your family is going to be worth probably $100 million within a generation. Wow. And the reason I know that is because I can already tell that not only are you introducing your children to economic concepts at an early age, and they're also cultural values that they're getting about working together, ownership, these little things that you do. And one of the kids is going to end up just taking off to the moon and creating some amazing opportunities. And then because you're connected, that support will be there, which is going to make it go full circle for the family. So congratulations already. You planted amazing seeds. I can see that. So yeah. So congratulations on that. But with that being said, I would say that my journey as a publisher, to that extent, if you like to know about that, is we were able to sell a lot of books over time. We found that selling books is easier when you're in person with people. When you do events and people hear you speak, they tend to want to buy your book after that. I would also say that anybody who writes a book should also work on being a good speaker so that you can speak on the topic of the book, and then people will also want to buy the book as part of what they're learning from you or getting from you as a speaker. Okay, and then in addition to that, I would also say that self-publishing is the best approach. I don't really think that giving a publisher ownership of your property is going to really work out well for you. Publishers tend to take, they're like record labels. They take most of the money and they leave you with the scraps. Now, the hard part is that when you take all that on yourself, that means the marketing is your responsibility. It means the distribution and the printing and everything else. But there are so many avenues that allow you to do that. I mean, Amazon KDP is very good right there to print your book very cheaply and then get as many units as you want. And then you can turn that into a lot of money. Also, I would say understanding business allows you to really understand that you're not just creating the book. The book is one manifestation of a set of core ideas that you have that can add to the world, right? When you figure out who you are just as a brand or as a business or what the case may be, the book is just one way for you to communicate those ideas. So there are other ways. There's merchandise. There is classes that can be taught. There are topics that can be spoken on as a speaker, training, things like that. And what I find is that really supplements everything that you might do with the book. So when I wrote the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, first of all, I didn't even know if I wanted to write another book. I'd already written a few, and I was kind of tired. Writing books makes you tired, at least for me anyway. And but what happened, what drove that book was I just had a goal. I said, I really want to see more families like the one I'm looking at right now, like the Johnson family. I need us to understand what it really means for us to be successful in this very competitive, chaotic world that doesn't always want us to succeed. That doesn't always, that isn't always happy to see us when we love each other and support each other and are doing well. So I said, okay, how can we come up with some basic rules that will help us operate as a unit, as a team? And if you look around, most of the economics on Earth is driven by what I call almost like gang affiliation. You have gangs or clubs or herds, or even animals know that when you operate as a pack, you're safer and stronger than when you separate individually. And we've unfortunately been trained in the opposite direction. We've been trained to separate, and then they just take us out one by one. But when we're together as a team, as a pack, can't nobody mess with us. Like, ain't nobody gonna mess with the Johnson family, because if you mess with one of them, you got to deal with all of them, right? So basically, if you notice, most economic gangs, they operate with like a code of conduct, like Apple. Apple is an economic gang. The company, Apple, Google, all that, that's an economic gang. They wear the same logo. They have operating rules. They have a common objective that they work together on. And you see this everywhere. You see the police. That's one type of gang. You have countries that come together and form coalitions. That's another gang. We have something called NAFTA, North American Free Trade Organization, or Free Trade Agreement. That's U.S., Mexico, and Canada forming a gang. And why is that? Well, they do that so they can unify and make money together. Same thing, even in China. China, we know, doesn't have the potential of Africa, but the difference is that China operates as one gang. Somehow they got everybody under the same umbrella, speaking the same language, having the same goal, all representing China. And the work that has to be done in Africa is we all look alike, but there's 1,000 different languages and cultures and everything else, which kind of makes it more difficult to operate under the same umbrella with the same objectives, right? So what I would say is that when I wrote that book, writing it was done because I said there's something that God is telling me that I need to share with my people, and I need to share it in a way that it's going to still be here even if I'm gone. And I need it to be simple and easily implementable so that families would then be able to apply this and then do something that's going to have a ripple effect that's going to go out 100 years. And so when that was done, then I outlined those ideas, thought them out. I've been talking about them in speeches and everything else, and then created the book and put it out there. So I would say that, if there's that underlying passion that's there, and writing is your gift, always know why you're writing what you're writing. I don't think writing things just for money is very much fun. I think that writing things because you're being driven by that, and you know why you're doing it, that's really going to motivate you, even if the money's not there. Because there were a lot of times when I wrote books and the money wasn't there. I wasn't making money doing it, but I kept going because I enjoyed it. So you got to pick stuff that you enjoyed. You got to work on things that you love. You got to work on things that actually matter, and things that matter to the people that matter to you. And that's my last point on that before I can open up for questions. So if someone has a question, I can pause right there and answer any question that you may have.
Awesome. So let me look and see if there are any questions in the chat. Let's see if any of those questions came through. Bear with me for just 1 second and let me enable it for everyone. Okay, so the chat is, we have some little ones going to sleep. It was kind of late for them.
Yeah,
but any questions for Dr. Boyce, Dr. Watkins, any questions at all, either on the Facebook live stream? Lana Ann says, hello to us. Hi, good night, everyone. This is great. Thank you. Anyone else, either on the live stream or the live webinar? I do have a question to get us started in your book. We've been going over the book. We have Powernomics, by Dr. Claude Anderson. Anthony spoke a little bit about that. I don't know if you remember our video, but we sent you a video talking about thanking you. And Anthony mentioned that it was sort of like you were a protege in a sense, because you're helping to keep his legacy alive, and that is just so important to us. And with this new book that you did, the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, you talk about planting seeds. And you touched on it just a little bit a few minutes ago, but what Anthony has led our family to do in planting seeds, that's what we've been trying to do. We've been working really hard at that. Can you speak to, and we still got a lot of work to do, but can you speak to that section of your book where you talk about some of the seeds that we should be planting as a Black American family?
Yeah, well, when you talk about planting seeds, I really want to start off to answer that question by talking about, what is wealth? Like what is wealth in general? What does it mean to be wealthy? Wealth has different meanings. Some people think it relates to money, but money is just one manifestation of wealth. There are lots of other things that are far more valuable than money, that you can have that, will make you feel very wealthy. And then some people have a lot of money and be very poor because the rest of their life is in shambles, their health and their relationships and everything else. But wealth is basically an accumulation process. It's an accumulation of something, right? Accumulation of money, accumulation of real estate, accumulation of love, an accumulation of good health, an accumulation of whatever. And anytime you have an accumulation of something, typically there was an accumulation process. Like if my wealth is my health, like let's say I'm super fit and I'm in really good shape. Well, that health, that wealth that I have in my body is a reflection of an accumulation process where I've been working out every day. I've been putting in the time. If my wealth is that I play the violin very well, Well, that comes from 10,000 hours of practice that I put into becoming a great violinist. And so that every time I sat down and I had practice, track practice or violin practice or whatever, or put money in my savings account, I'm planting a seed. I'm planting the seed. You plant, you plant, you plant, you plant, you plant. And then the wealth is just kind of the harvest. That's just you showing other people the result of all the work that you put in up until that point. And what happens is that we got tricked when it came to wealth. We somehow got convinced that you can have a harvest without planting any seeds. And so when somebody talks about, you know, how they're struggling and they have no money, no resources, no nothing, well, I say, well, what seeds did you plant? You know, what seeds did you plant with education? What seeds did you plant with hard work? What seeds did you plant with investing in the stock market? What seeds did you plant? Or my children hate me. Well, what seeds did you plant in spending time with those kids when they were young, so that maybe they would show up for you when you get older, right? And so ultimately, seed planting is the most critical aspect of wealth, because if you're a consistent seed planter, you can't help but to be wealthy in some area. Everything you put energy into eventually is going to pay off for you. And also when you talk about something like economics, most of the economics that's out here in terms of people having a big accumulation, a big harvest, is a result of somebody planting seeds across generations. You know, my wife bought her first house with money that was invested by her great-grandfather in 1945. And so that's because, so somebody thinking about her in 1945 who didn't even know her, who never met her, or didn't, I think he might have met her when she was a baby, was the reason that she was able to buy a house in 2000 and whatever, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, the question that I think everyone should ask themselves, and the question I ask myself every day is, what are you investing in? Where are you planting your seeds? You've got to plant seeds. It's got to be part of the culture. And the other thing about planting seeds and helping them grow is it's hard for a seed to grow in toxic soil. So that's everything from a child that's raised in a toxic environment, where that child's going to grow up and be dysfunctional. They're going to have a lot of problems. With a business, if someone tries to start a business and it's a toxic economic soil, meaning that your family doesn't support you, they're always discouraging you, nobody wants to help you, nobody wants to buy anything from you, nobody wants to even hit the like button on your Facebook post about your business, well, that business isn't going to grow. So what we should think about is not just planting lots of seeds, but also creating fertile soil in everything that matters. Fertile economic soil, but it's got to be fertile soil when it comes to wealth, period. Whatever wealth means to you, wealth might show up in the form of money for sure, but there's also physical health in terms of thinking carefully about what we eat and what we encourage each other to eat. And then you might go into things like relationships. You know, if like right now, my parents are aging, and our family's been hit with cancer a lot. And, you know, one of the good things, one of the shining lights of the family is that when it was time for all the kids to come together to show up for mama and show up for daddy, there wasn't no question about it. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we try to get so-and-so, but he's out here hooked on drugs. So, you know, or so-and-so just don't even care about the family no more. You know, a lot of families have those issues, but we didn't have that problem because of the seeds that were planted many, many years ago to teach us the culture of sticking together as a family, as well as other forms of culture like educational values and saving your money and preparing for a rainy day and hard work and responsibility, right? So planting the seed is very important, and creating the proper soil is very important. If you do those two things, then you can't help but to be successful.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. We do have a question from someone on the live stream. Tanya E. Hood says, love this. I agree that we should operate as a collective. What suggestions would you give to a team? What suggestions would you give to build a team if you have limited time because you are still working full time?
Building a team. Well, the first thing I would say is when you talk about team building, I think looking at that in a bigger scope might be starting off with just understanding the value of relationships and the importance of investing in relationships, building relationships, and repairing relationships, and knowing how to do that properly. Um, relationships are literally one of the most important aspects of wealth building that there is. I didn't learn. It took me a long time to figure that out, but now I understand. Good relationships can either make things easy or make things hard, and what I can say is that if you're talking about building a team, you don't have much time. I would say rather than just focusing on the specific and explicit act of building a team to achieve a specific economic purpose, I think thinking generally just about relationship building, relationship management is important. And so if we have people that we're building healthy relationships with in our lives, sometimes we're related to them. These are people that go way back. But then sometimes you have relatives maybe that you don't really want to do business with. You don't feel comfortable doing that. And I would say at that point, it might be a matter of understanding each other and saying, okay, what are we trying to do? So I wouldn't put a lot of pressure on yourself to get together and say, okay, we're going to do this as a business meeting. Just get together for a Sunday dinner or something and just say, okay, let's spend a few minutes talking about money. Let's spend a few minutes talking about business. Let's spend a few minutes talking about creating opportunities with each other, and then investing a little bit of time that you may have. And it may just be literally 1 hour a week. 1 hour a week is not that much time. Even if you're working full time, you can do 1 hour a week. One Sunday meeting, you'd be amazed at how much can be accomplished in one Zoom meeting per week with the family. And what I found when we did our family Zoom meetings was that we would learn a lot about each other that we didn't even know. We would know about things that others had going on that we had no idea about. And then on top of that, we were able to talk about economics too and make some financial plans and pull some things together to help each other achieve various goals. So I think you can still build a team even if your time is limited. But in general, just thinking specifically about building and maintaining healthy relationships. And there's a way you network with other people to get them to want to work with you. George Fraser, who wrote Success Runs in Our Race, he's the networking guru of America. And he's very good. He really showed me a lot about the importance of networking with other people by being as helpful as you can be. If you are giving to the right people, then people will give back to you. And so even when you're networking with somebody that you would like to have on your team or you'd like to work with or partner with, showing up and offering to support them in something that they're doing and caring about what they care about is a good way to get them to care about what you care about. And so I think you can do it. I would start with something real basic though, not overwhelm yourself. I think 1 hour a week would do it. And if you think about how important our economic survival is to all of us in our lives, why wouldn't we put 1 hour a week into that? That's actually not very much time. There's 168 hours in a week. So you investing one of them to build your future, I think is a worthwhile trade-off.
Thank you so much for that. In reference to your book, again, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, when you're talking about economic power, define that for us and then give us a few examples of how families can build economic power if they're starting from scratch. We don't have the 400-year head start some other, races and nationalities have.
Well, let's talk about what economic power really looks like. You can start with a couple of basic things like financial security, not living paycheck to paycheck, not being stressed out and losing sleep because you're worried about the economic foundation falling out beneath you. And then things like maybe cash flow, the ability to get access to the money that you need to make the investments that you'd like to make, things like that. But even more deeply for Black people, economic power is extremely important because a big source of our stress and honestly a big source of a lot of the racial aggression that we might experience comes from a lack of economic independence and security and freedom. There's nothing more painful than to get up every day and go to work for somebody who hates you. It's very, very hard to do. And so we unfortunately are stuck in this weird holding pattern where we're preparing our kids to go out and be tortured in the same economy that tortured us. And and I'm just sick of it. I don't want my children working for somebody who doesn't like them. I want them to be in a space where they feel loved and supported and not just tolerated. So if you're starting off with nothing, I think the first step definitely is to understand that starting with nothing does not mean you're supposed to finish with nothing. But sometimes we get in the habit of having nothing. So we just say that's just the way it is. That's the way it's always going to be. And so that right there is kind of a self-esteem issue in terms of saying like, okay, you deserve better than that. Your children certainly deserve better than that. But that also requires things that society does not reinforce, like delayed gratification, long-term planning, things like that. We live in a world of instant gratification. We live in a world that encourages, planning for Saturday night, not planning for the next 5 or 10 years. And because here's the thing, if your culture, if your values are shaped so that you are a person that can make just a 10-year plan, it's very easy for somebody like me to tell you how to be wealthy in 10 or 15 years. It's not hard. The weird thing is that a lot of us can't even look out 10 years. But think about it. It's 2023. 2013 wasn't that long ago. But if I went back to 2013 right now and said, here's what's going to happen between now and 2023, and here's how you can prepare for that, and here's the opportunities you can take, you can invest in and prepare for right now that are going to put you in a good position by 2023, I bet you a lot of people wouldn't listen. I could get a time machine right now and go to the year 2013, tell them everything that's going to happen, everywhere to put their money, and about maybe 5 to 10% of the people would listen. And so ultimately, it's a lot of it really definitely means we're really in a culture battle. It's not a battle of in terms of access to knowledge and information, because if you have a cell phone, you have a whole university in your pocket. Any information that you want access to is right there available to you. They even got artificial intelligence bots that'll go search out any information that you want. And so access to the information is not the issue. It's really value systems and culture, because your values will tell you what information matters to you, what information you're going to go seek out. So if your values tell you that you want to go and find out, where the next Beyonce concert is, or how I can get a new iPhone or a new pair of sneakers, then that's what you're going to go look for. But if your values tell you that you want to learn how to prepare for the future and be in a good position, then you'll spend your time looking for that. And there are a lot of people that get that. I think there are a lot of people that get that. And the other thing I would say too is that wealth is a team sport and it's a cross-generational sport. So my argument is that if you have children that are young, there's no reason on this earth that your children shouldn't be financially secure by a certain age. I have something on my website, boycewatkins.com. I call it the $5 a day investing plan. If you literally, and this is done, I've seen this mathematically, this is the kind of stuff that we understand from studying stock markets and all that. If you invest $35 a week, which is $5 a day, which isn't even enough to buy a McDonald's value meal, in the stock market, and you randomly pick stocks, even if you didn't even know anything about stocks, you just randomly pick companies that were in the S&P 500, and you did that consistently every week, and did not sell those stocks, then by the time your child is 30 years old, they'd have $250,000, approximately, somewhere around there. Maybe it's only 230,000 or whatever, but still it would be enough liquid income that they would literally be separated from everybody else. They wouldn't be having the same problems that a lot of our kids have. So a lot of times it's not, but unfortunately we've been trained to believe that it's all connected to like this tremendous lack of opportunity that's incredibly overwhelming. And I'm not going to sit here and say that opportunities are available for everybody, but there are some opportunities that are right there in front of us. But if you're stuck on the idea that there's no chance and there's no opportunity for you to improve your situation, then that's where you're going to stay. That's where you're mentally going to stay. So a lot of us are psychologically incarcerated. For those that are liberated, it's very straightforward, actually, to change that generational curse right now. Just literally that one thing, that $5 a day plan. If you did that for your child, and as long as you never sell the stock, and every stock you pick, just pick something out of the S&P 500 or get an index fund from Vanguard that says S&P 500 on it, your child is going to be financially good for the rest of their life. Problem solved.
Awesome. Awesome. And you said the $5 a day plan is on your website. Do you have that link available? Where? Okay. Yep. Can we
yes.
get that link?
Yeah, BoyceWatkins.com, BoyceWatkins.com, and if somebody wants a hard copy, I wrote a little short, but it's not even a full book, but it's a tiny little book. It's on Amazon. It's called the $5 a Day Investing Plan, and that's available there too. And effectively, I did that because when I started talking about wealth on the internet and kind of doing what I do, I became very exhausted from the Black people that have no faith in Black people, yeah, that unfortunately are just trapped in that cage of oppression, to the point where they will fight so hard to convince you that there's nothing that we can do without a superhero or without the government and all this other stuff. And it was very exhausting. So I said, okay, let me just shut this argument down once and for all. And I said, okay, what is something that we spend our money on all the time and don't even think about it, where we spent thousands and thousands of dollars over the course of years? I said, oh, fast food. I said, okay, so let's say $5. You can't even buy a McDonald's value meal for $5. So if you tell me Black people cannot afford to invest, then you're basically telling me Black people can't afford fast food. And I know you're lying, right? You can put a Popeye's chicken in the middle of the poorest neighborhood in America, and that Popeye's chicken will have a line of people out the door, around the corner, down the block. And 90% of those people in that line shouldn't even be there, right? They already got the diabetes and the heart disease and everything else, right? So, I'm not even judging that. If that people like chicken, there ain't nothing wrong with that. That's their business. But at the end of the day, we've got to really kind of address these things and at least accept the idea that we have the ability to solve our own problems. And that's hard for some people to accept, but I pray for them. I wish them the best, but I'm also speaking for the people that already understand this and saying, okay, here's how we can move forward. And your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren will never be poor again. And the coolest thing is that this is a great opportunity, because if you do it well and you do it right in this generation, your children and grandchildren, they're going to remember that. Your great-grandchildren, 100 years from now, they'll be talking about you. You'll be a hero to the family. But you got to see the value in the family. You have to have that ability. And this goes back to faith. When I came in and I saw, I ain't gonna lie, I don't go to church. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm a man of huge faith. I deeply believe in the power of God and the universe and everything else. And so to me, it's like faith drives me every day, because I'm sitting there thinking, there are people that I will never meet, people that are not even born, that are going to get what I'm saying right now. Maybe there's nobody in here listening that cares what I got to say, but somebody's going to benefit from this, because it's going to, out of 1,000 people I talked to that day, there's going to be maybe 20 of them who are going to take it to heart, and they're going to teach it to their kids, and then their kids will teach it to their kids. And we're creating generational prosperity every single time we have this conversation. So that's what makes me get up and open my mouth every day, is I'm really seeing the things that are not yet seen. And I think that developing that type of vision over time is something that we can all practice and gain, and it'll keep you going. It keeps you going even when it seems like the whole world doesn't care what you have to say. Because believe me, I don't think that people like me are necessarily all that popular. I'm not as popular as some of these crazy rappers, out here just speaking death and chaos and destruction and drug addiction to our people. They get their audiences are 1,000 times bigger than mine. But I'm not really seeing like what's here now. I'm looking at what's going to exist if we can achieve the goal of making this sink in as a cultural value within some segment of our people, because their children and their grandchildren are going to be the ones who become the billionaires and the trillionaires and the corporate chiefs that are going to end up running the world. That's what I'm seeing every single day when I talk. That connection is very important. You are right about that. They say, I heard Pastor Kevin Cosby say something that I think makes sense. He says, before you correct, you must connect. And before, and then even more deeply, with my wife being a therapist, and I learned a lot of the stuff that she knows, and I already told you I was kind of half crazy, so I needed a therapist anyway. and that's what I learned. I learned about the importance of developing that connection through various approaches, making sure that people feel like they're heard, so they'll know you understand them, and then they'll try to understand you. Like, ain't nobody gonna try to understand somebody who doesn't understand them. Yeah. So I think that what you're saying about the experiences that we have and allowing us to use those experiences, I think any experience can be used as an asset to you. In fact, the more painful, the more challenging experience is, the more work I think you should put into turning that into some kind of asset. Like if you went through a tragedy, then make that into your best-selling book. Tell that comeback story. Like people, you're gonna help somebody and you're gonna help yourself. You deserve it. You went through it. You know, so really I'm, you know, maybe I don't think I'm overly optimistic when I say there is a benefit in everything. You know, there is not a strong person on this earth who didn't get strong by going through something terrible. You know, I've never been to a heaven that didn't require me to go through hell in order to earn my right to be there. You know, and so ultimately sometimes, you know, and I talk to my wife about it sometimes because she'll you know, I'll tell her a story about something terrible that happened when I was 12 or something, and she'll just say, "Oh, you poor baby, and I feel so bad for you." And I'll be like, "Well, why you feel so bad for me? I don't feel bad for me, because that's what made me strong. I learned some lessons from that experience. I've processed it in a way where no, this ain't gonna beat me down and keep me down. I'm gonna take this and package it up in some way that's gonna make me the kind of man I never would have been if I hadn't gone through that." And so I encourage everybody to do that. You know, and the simple way I've heard somebody else say it is, don't let she used the words better, not bitter. You know, you can have those negative experiences and they can make you worse and tear you down and all that. And that to me is part of that processing, is saying, okay, how am I going to take this and understand this shouldn't have happened to me, but since it did, I'm going to extract whatever lessons are there, and then also care about other people and share what I've experienced so that they can overcome what they're going through or be aware of something that they need to look out for or something like that. I'm a big believer in that. And I think it shows up definitely in writing, you know, in writing, speaking, leading, or anything. Most people are, they tend to they give more credibility to people who've actually gone through something. You can't really be a good teacher if you ain't been through nothing.
Amen.
Yeah, you know, and I'll say this too, you know, that it's you know, our children are such a valuable asset. And I just don't know if we really, some of us have really understood that, been really have that drilled into us, because we live in a society that doesn't really value family and children as much as it used to. I think that we see children as sort of this extra burden, this extra financial responsibility, and you know, and it's almost like in a magazine I saw them refer to children as like a luxury item. You got extra money, so you got money to burn, so you go ahead and have some kids because you can spend. And what's happened is they've disconnected from the time where 100 years ago people understood if you have a big family, that meant you had more protection. That means you had more economic security because you had lots of labor. You know, they saw the family as a source of wealth, wealth protection, everything in between. And so the reason I go back to that is because I think what it speaks to is that in our society, the things we have to walk away from are little things like the devaluation of motherhood. You know, we look at a mother or a single mother like, oh, well, you ain't nothing, you ain't blah, 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 blah. No, there's no more valuable task that any of us does in this society than giving birth to a child. None of us will be here without mama, right? And then secondly, the fathers are right there in terms of our role, in terms of what we do. And then of course that links to the devaluation of fatherhood. Either people feeling like the father's not necessary, or fathers who don't want to be fathers, and all these other issues. And what people are missing, and this is where that lack of vision comes into play, is they're missing that whole picture in terms of what happens 30, 40 years down the line, you know, when your children are now the adults and you're a frail old man or frail old woman, and they don't want nothing to do with you. They see you as a burden now. You know, they're not coming to visit you in the nursing home. They're gonna let you just, you know, be homeless on the street, especially you ain't prepared for retirement. You didn't do none of that. So now you stuck because the kids are living their best life now because you were living your best life 20 or 30 years ago. And so, so what I think every family should understand, how many children do y'all have, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson?
8.
8 children, right? You're already a multi-million-dollar family.
Amen.
Literally.
That.
And I'm not just saying it to be nice. I want to be nice to you, but I don't have to make things up. I don't have to lie to say this. Think about it like this: 8 children. Look at how much labor those children are going to produce for the world before they retire. If every person works 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, that's 2,000 hours a year. Over a decade, that's 20,000 hours a decade. Over the course of a career, they work about 100,000 hours, 100,000 hours of labor. If you value that labor, that 100,000 hours of labor at, let's say, I don't know, let's pick a number, $50 an hour, that's $5 million worth of labor, right? Now think about this. This is the brainwashing. We're trained to send our children out to go, we farm them out to these corporations, right? So each of them is making a $5 million donation to white supremacy by the time they're done, right? They're making a $5 million donation to white folks. And so 8 kids, 8 times 5 is $40 million. And so and that doesn't even count interest and compound interest. You throw in compound interest, you're talking about at least 100 million, maybe 200 million, right? Now, what happens if you reverse that process? What happens when Anthony and Christina say, no, don't go give your best to them, give your best to the family. Pour all that expertise, all that labor, blood, sweat, and tears, we're gonna pour it into the family pot, and we just gonna make our family into the empire that it's supposed to be. You know, this is the natural course of things. This is what's supposed to happen. There are families that do this. You know, families like the Hunt family that own the Kansas City Chiefs. A couple generations ago, the grandfather bought the Chiefs for about $500. Now the Chiefs are worth $5 billion. You know, so you have that vision and you're planting the seeds and pouring into the children the way you are. You're giving them life, they're loyal to you, you're giving them love and support and protection and nurturing and guidance. And then they go out and they become the extraordinary young people they're supposed to be. And then they're all connected as that gang, like I talk about in that book. Ain't nothing stopping you. That family legacy is more powerful, more valuable than most corporations. That's one example. The big question that the males have to ask ourselves is, what are we going to do about that?
Amen.
You know, they're not going to stop doing it if it's easy to do.
Exactly.
You know, and so ultimately, you know, what you're really describing to me is warfare. And you know, I've never seen a soldier that won a battle by complaining about the enemy and what they do to him, right? You must strategize, you must fight back. And that's and when I realized things like that, that's when I kind of changed a little bit in a way that was offensive to certain people. You know, there were some people, they expect me to go along with, you know, like, oh, let's all just show up and vote for the Democratic Party, or let's just pray that the problems will go away and all that. And I said, that's not my nature as a man, and that's not even in my wife's nature. And she's as feminine as of a woman as you can be, but she doesn't, you know, she understands, like, no, that's not going to work. You know, you have to actually fight back. So I think we see it, and I think that that first step after you've become aware of it and you understand it, at that point you say, okay, here's how we're going to address that. Here's how we're going to deal with that. And I think the hard part becomes the fact that you do have, it's not as if, even from where I'm standing, you know, I talk to a lot of Black people. A lot of Black people disagree with me. A lot of them fight me tooth and nail all day long. And I'm not even, you know, I'm not even going to say that they're always wrong. Maybe in certain areas, maybe they're right and I'm wrong. I don't know. All I know is that from where I'm sitting, I can't sit and wait for everybody to figure it out and to get it before I say, okay, let's just get on our lifeboat and let's go this way. And I think that's what I'm observing, as I'm observing a class of our people, a group of our people that are just going to do extraordinary things in this next generation. Your family is one of them. Your family, I told you about I told you in very clear terms exactly why you're already millionaires. You just may not have the money yet. The money's coming, I promise. You know, but yeah, and there are other families out there like that.
Yeah,
and that's our hope. That's our beacon. And what's going to happen also is I believe that for those who aren't necessarily prepared for the future, Maybe their children can come work for your children.
Yeah.
Everybody, I guess everybody, isn't going to win and doesn't have to win. But if the people that do win care about those who are still in the struggle, then they can come back and elevate others, because that's an important element of it as well, is when you talk about that leadership. I've seen entertainers, when I sat on that phone with Kanye West for hours and hours and hours, and one of the biggest areas where we could not see eye to eye is when I just could not understand how you could spend $2-3 million on something stupid, but I can't convince you to invest $2 or $3 million in something that's going to benefit Black people. Not even charity. I'm not talking about a donation. I'm talking about a business that would actually make you money and all this other stuff. The values have to be there. And it's no disrespect to him, but it's really kind of like, imagine if you had a person, remember Kanye was making $250 million a year. That's a lot of money. So with the amount of money he was making each year, he could have endowed 3 HBCUs per year. I'm talking about each year, he had enough money to create 3 HBCUs that would educate Black children for the next 200 years per year. Because if you look at HBCU endowments, only 3 of them have an endowment that's greater than the amount of money that Kanye made in a year. If you add the money he makes in 4 years, there's no HBCU on this earth that has an endowment bigger than the amount of money he was making in a 4-year period from Adidas. And so mindset is everything. Culture is everything. When you'd rather spend money on a Kardashian than on your own family, I don't know, I can't do nothing with you. But what I'm dreaming about is that one day there's going to be that Black child that does have that same opportunity, that's bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars a year, who's going to say, oh, no, I want 99% of that money to go right back into my people. And I know those people exist because I'm one of them. I've made some money. I made several $1 million. And believe me, the white man has never, ever stepped forward to ever help me get any of that done. And all that money that I get, I've hired tons of Black people. I can say that I put millions of dollars into, with stuff with Dr. Claude Anderson, even supporting him. A lot of money went to what he was doing. And so I'm not the point here is, I'm dreaming of that day where you have somebody that's really got that crazy money, who has that same mindset. Like right now, I was sitting there and I said, golly, man, you got all this money, man. I was like, if I could just control your brain for a little while, we could change the whole Black community in about a week. But but unfortunately, the entertainer's mind is a little bit different from what we might see, as people that are more connected to grassroots. So, but there's hope. There is hope. There is possibility. I see great things happening already. I think it's only going to get greater. No matter how good things are getting now, I think in 50 years, it's going to be extraordinarily good, and we're going to be gone, but that's where faith kicks in. And I know it's going to happen. And that's what I'm working for every day. I'm not looking at 2023. I'm looking at 2083.
Wow.
Yeah, for real.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. We do. Okay. So we have a question from Jake Bam. They're dropping like flies. Stay with us, Jake Bam.
I know. Oh, gosh. I'm so proud of it for hanging in there.
I'm sorry, real quick. There is a question in the chat from Pastor Willette Wooden. She says, should we remove money from bank accounts and put them elsewhere? Example, credit unions.
I think credit unions are better in the sense that they tend to give you back more of what you're giving them. I think credit unions are more connected to the community. It's easier to get things like a home loan and things like that from credit unions. And so I'm a fan of credit unions and Black-owned banks. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to do that, I don't see anything wrong with that. If you have like investment accounts, one thing that I don't do is I don't put all my investment account money in one place. Like, like if you remember the company FTX that was doing crypto and all that, and they just lost everybody's money. Some people lost their whole life savings. Usain Bolt just lost, his whole life savings, because he had it all with one broker. I don't put my money all in one place. You know, you got to spread that money out, put it into different kinds of investments. If you are an investor, don't just put your money in stocks. Don't just put it in crypto. Don't just put it in real estate. Spread it out. And then even with, if you have stocks on the apps, maybe put it on 2 or 3 different apps or something. So you can just kind of have some different moves you can make in case something goes wrong with one. I don't care how trustworthy somebody say they are with money. I don't trust none of them. Not with my life savings. No. Well, I'm glad that you were okay and you are right. I think that God is there with all of us, and I think that having faith in something is what allows you to kind of separate when you see people in the world doing bad stuff or things you don't want to be a part of. A lot of your success in your life and your protection in your life really comes from knowing how to discern the things that you should be connected to and not connected to. And so definitely, I want to encourage you not to follow the crowd because, you know, as you get older, you're going to see a lot of people doing a lot of things that they should not be doing. And you got to have the courage to say, I'm not doing that. I'm not part of that. Mm-hmm. You know, that's very, very important. You know, and so I know your parents are very proud of you. I saw your mama. I saw your daddy had a big smile and mama was just like this. And so so that was a very, very good question. Thank you for sharing that story. Very nice. And those are beautiful names, by the way. Oh, I think you're muted, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you. When Elizabeth shared what she shared with you, you know, we did what we did with the Rise Virtual Summit, and we said, okay, you know, we want to, you know, get together, do something for families. And you came today, you presented. And out of all you presented, she went back to when you were first born and the touching story that touched youth, you know, that story, you know, touched the youth of today. So when you speak, we are listening, people are listening, the right people are hearing you. And we just pray that you reap 1,000-fold for what you did for us today and just coming and spending a few moments with us. We appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you too. And I have had a wonderful time, and I'm honored to have been invited here. And we're friends for life because I want to see how this story plays out. You know, when these amazing children grow up and become extraordinary adults, and I know what good leadership in a family looks like. And I think it's and this is important because family is one of those last institutions that we have left. You know, a lot of these institutions you can't lean on to create the kinds of Black children that we need to create in the world. You know, I don't think that the public school system is going to do it. Corporations ain't going to do it. You know, and so it is up to us to do it, and we can do it, and we will do it. And also, I don't teach any students at all. I teach teachers. And so I want to encourage everybody in here that heard anything that was beneficial to you. The best way to repay is if you heard something that works for you, have that courage to teach it, have that courage to share it. You know, it's to the children, have that courage to be the leader. If you're the leader and you're strong enough and you have the energy, then people will follow you because you'll be the one person in the group who knows who they are and knows where they're going and knows what they're all about. You're not going to be trying to change with the wind. Nobody follows a leaf, but people will stick with a rock. So you got to be a rock. You can't just move whichever way the wind blows. That's what the leaves do. That's what the weak people do. You got to be the strong one who says, no, we're going in that direction. And if you do that and you don't flinch, then guess what? You'll turn around and be a whole bunch of people following you. You know, so use that power. That is a gift from God that I think all of us have access to, and only some of us, I guess, have the courage to use it. But I encourage you to have that courage. So thank you very much for having me. It was very nice to meet you, and I look forward to talking to you all in the future.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
It was good having you too.
We are just tickled. I can't say tickled pink. Tickled black is the new pink.
Yeah, we didn't listen to you so much. It's already like we know you anyway. So like, see you Saturday.
Right.
Well, I'm honored and flattered. So say something. So if you ever watch it, say something in the chat, and then I'll shout back at you.
All right.
And I'll mention it's a wonderful summit, great, excellent job. And let me know if there's anything else I can ever do. And thank you to everybody who's listening. And
awesome.
and good night to the children. I see y'all hung in there.
They hung in there.
And I love it. So God bless all of you. I'll see y'all later.
You too. Now have a good one.
All righty. Good night. Take care, Dr. Boyce.
Bye bye.